bit of a hiccup kind of getting on board. I don't care what anybody says. I'm blaming Linda, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. um, I appreciate you, ladies. I appreciate everyone kind of joining in with us today. We're going to be having a great conversation. We're capping off, obviously, a special month where we're recognizing the amazing work that women have done, specifically women in the military, for this conversation. So we have different branches of service represented. Linda is representing two branches, so we're just going to leave that there. We'll go around the room. My
Yep.
name is. I am very jealous. You got a chance to do two different things. So, my name is DP David Pineda, disabled Army veteran, and I will be hanging out with these amazing ladies today. Oh, wait a second, and we have, don't call it a comeback, Amy sliding in right in the nick of time. So, let's go ahead and go around Robin. We'll start with Linda, then Hallie, then Nayeli, then Carla, and I'll bring in Amy.
Hi, my name is Linda. I am a retired Marine. I started in the Army, but I wised up and I went to the Marine Corps and had a blast.
Mm, mm, mm. That's your
Yeah.
story. You're sticking to it.
Yep, got to.
Over to you, Hallie.
Hi, I'm Hallie, now Johnston, formerly Huggins. I was in the Army previously as an Army helicopter pilot. I actually had the privilege to follow my mom's footsteps. She was a Huey pilot, which was the predecessor to the Black Hawk. So I was able to fly that. She put my wings on. Super, super, super blessed. Um, After service, I spent some time with JP Morgan, and now I'm with Henry Schein, and also spent some time with the Pins Insider. So excited to speak with you all.
Congratulations on that. Thank you for being with us. Over to you, Nayeli.
My name is Nayeli. I am a Navy veteran, 7 years. Yeah.
And then done amazing things in between.
Yes. Quite a few.
And over to Carla, plus one.
How's it going? My name's Karla Nemitz. I'm a Coast Guard veteran. I was in for 5 years, and when I got out, I pursued electrical in the construction industry. And now I'm up here in Alaska. I work at the Boys and Girls Club, and I take care of Penny.
Awesome. That's probably that's like the capstone and the highlight of the day for the record. When the camera came on and Carla showed up, it was just like, oh, wait a second, glad you're here, but who's with you? It's like the new parent curse. You walk into a room and they're like, "It's good that you're here, but let me see the baby."
Yeah.
Um, so we have again, a majority of branches here represented, and we are going to show. We have a blog that's also part of this conversation for those that can go over to veteransnetwork.club. You will see a blog specifically breaking down the amazing things that all of these amazing women have done, both in service and after service. Notably, we have to give a special shout out to Carla. She's actually been selected as the 2021 of the 2021 Trailblazers selectee for some of the work that she's done. So she has an artistic eye, and has done some amazing work. So congratulations on that, Carla.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So let's kind of start off with some basic things. I think that we sat down and we wanted to have a conversation. Hallie, we had reached out and we had coordinated to get together a few months ago to kind of just have a conversation about service and things that you've done. And overall, I think it's needed to have a conversation to really talk about some of the things that folks may take for granted or may not know. Obviously, we know that there are many women that have done some amazing things in service, but sometimes you know how it is, right? Nobody wants to toot their horn, or nobody wants to bring too much attention. But I think it's something to be said to be able to also pave the way to what's happened, and for those that may come afterward, to be able to talk about some of those things. So to kind of start off, Hallie, on your side of the house, talk to us a little bit about your journey, because you had an interesting process. You graduated from a pretty prestigious school and did some amazing things in the military. Talk to us how it was on your side of the house, having to go through that as a woman, right? And what's that meant for you? I know your past, but for the viewers that are seeing out there, you're involved in a lot of different things. I think it'd be good to kind of touch on a little bit of that because we talk about ceilings being broken, but obviously there's a few that you did break, and you're still breaking. So talk to us a little bit about where you kind of your military career and how you kind of passed through some of that.
Well, DP, thank you. You're way too kind. Before I get started, I just say thank you to all the women that came before me. I mean, they paved the way for me. Again, my mom was one of the first 100 women that went into Army Aviation after they opened the branch, and I followed in her footsteps. But I give thanks to all those women that again paved the way. For myself, I come from a very heavy military background. So both my grandparents, my entire family, mom, dad, both brothers. I honestly, at first, was against it. I was like, I'm going to be rebellious. I'm not going to go into the military. But my parents sat me down. Obviously, I have really high respect for my parents and their thoughts. And they're like, just take this course, go see what it's like. Went to West Point. I actually went to the prep school. I didn't have the required classes that you needed to get in, so they gave me a waiver to go and do an extra year at the prep school before they let me in. So I knew I was going to have to work twice as hard. My dad kept telling me, all you need to do is pass, Hallie. So that was in my mindset and trying to get the aviation branch. But while I was at school, I mean, you're correct. I think now it's up closer to the 20% of females that are going through West Point. Again, I put my mind in neutral, and I thankfully I have a very active lifestyle. So I was recruited for track and field, and I mean, as many of the other women on this live today, PT is huge in the military. So that's how I gained my respect off the get go. I was a prior gymnast as well, so I could probably do more push-ups than most of the men that were in my unit anyway. So anytime they tried to challenge me, that's the route I would take. But I think also it's really the empathy that you show those that are in your unit, and again, you have to approach everyone in a different way and figure out what's their motivating factors, and that's a big thing that I learned throughout any stage in life. And so again, I went to aviation. Is phenomenal branch. Was very, very supportive. I can't say enough great things. I served with a lot of great men as well that pushed me to be even better. And I think I do think if I look back, I probably had to do it because I was a female. I needed to prove myself, but they were supportive. They were very, very supportive. And afterwards, I think a lot of people that transition, they're not sure exactly what they want to do outside the military or how their skills transition into the civilian world. And people always ask, what's the biggest thing that you miss about the military? And it's the camaraderie. Like, it's a family atmosphere that you really don't get. I went into corporate America and it was definitely lacking. So I thankfully found another avenue through Carry the Load, which is a military nonprofit. And that is my family. And that's where I spend a lot of my volunteerism time. And it's really about giving back to those that have sacrificed for this nation. And they've actually expanded beyond military. They include firefighters, police, first responders, and their families. But great people, I consider them family. So.
Awesome. What year did you go into service, Hallie?
2011.
2011 is when you got out?
Yes.
And then
when I went in.
Gotcha. 2011. Okay. So let's balance out a little bit. So Linda, on your side of the house, talk to us a little bit about when you went in, because I think it's also great to be able to see the changes over the years, as far as like what service was like. Let's say like in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2011, in the 2000s, and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about your side. Obviously, given the respect that the Army is due because you started there first.
Yeah, I started in the Army 1983. For some reason, because I could never deal with a lot of sun. Even when I went to Army boot camp and Marine Corps boot camp, I begged to go in December. Don't ask me why, but the colder the better. Got frostbite at Fort Dix for that being in the cold. I think the strangest thing for me was everything was integrated. All the men and the women were together. Um, but when I was in the Marine Corps, everything was separate. Um, the Army was a lot more physical. I think I would say it was a lot more physical, more structured at that time for just being in the field. And like Hallie said, you really, I can remember we were in the barracks and we used to have the coffee cans and they would put cement in them. And that was what we lifted weights. So everything was, yeah, you literally did everything physical just to keep up because if you couldn't do anything, you were nothing. You were literally nothing. Then, like when I went to the Marine Corps, it was more like, okay, the ladies do this and the ladies do that. Even when I went to Marine Corps, there wasn't this thing like MCT and the Pugil sticks and all of that. All those things came and they were integrated later on. So if I were to look at what the military is now, a fairly easy time because when I first went in, the Army was 2 miles, the Marine Corps was a mile and a half. Well, I knew because I grew up in a farm and I worked in the fields, the physical part of it was nothing. And for me, it was just in the beginning a way to get away from nothing because there was literally nothing where I was. It was one or two factories. And I built a family. I literally built a family that lasted, I think I've been associated with the military now for roughly 30 years.
Wow.
For literally roughly 30 years.
And you also kept a close tie even post service because of the work you've done associated. So to kind of Hallie's point, have you seen? And we'll go over to Nayeli and Karla as well. The changes over time. As far as the like integration, different things. Because from the outside, you know how it is. Like I'll use for example. The VA healthcare system. From the outside, it's supposed to be great because everything it's reading right. But those that are in the system know like it is a train wreck sometimes and not exactly how it should be. So being realistic, right? People may say integration, say all these different things, but because you're so connected, how have you seen over the past 10, 20 plus years that change as far as opportunities, and especially even in the Marine Corps because you're still associated on your side. What have you noted and seen as far as positive changes or things that are still yet to be, addressed?
I think they've got a lot of work to do. I know when I retired, um, there was no transition, no anything. I just happened to meet somebody at the airport and they said, well, if you want to know about VA disability, look up the Schedule 4. I was out of work for a year with cancer and I took that big book and I read it and I applied it. All of my records were paper. So there's just a lot of information now. It's like in the services, they whitewash it. People don't know, even with all the veterans that would come here, they don't know anything. Are there opportunities? Yeah. But I think a lot of times that to leave from the comfort of the military, because when I retired, I left and I went and I worked for the state. And then I dabbled with the community college because, I wanted to teach. It was just things that I wanted to do. So all the service made that for me, but I had to put forth a lot more initiative and to go out and seek. And I would find that there were some industries that were really receptive because you were prior military. Then again, there were other people, it was like, well, can you let go of that mentality? And the mentality that they really wanted me to let go of was the Marine Corps. It had nothing to do with the Army. It was like, well, can you let go of being, a Marine? So I would say industries are good, but some of them it's just harder to be in. And it changes. It changes literally every day. Even where I am, it changes literally because the commanders are younger, the ways of life are younger, the thought process, it's a whole new ball game. It's literally a whole new ball game.
Going to you, Karla. We talked a little bit about your in recent accolades, which again is amazing. But talk to us a little bit about like your time in service and kind of how you experienced service, and then we'll kind of flip over to your current work that you're doing still, because I think the biggest bridge here is what's happening in service and after service, and how to continue to give back and pave the way. So talk to us a little bit about your service, some of your experiences when you went in, and then we'll kind of move into the current VA Trailblazer highlight, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no problem. So just like Haley, I also joined in 2011, and I was in for 5 years. And of course, the Coast Guard, I've heard every joke. puddle pirate,
Mhm.
everything you can. We're definitely the redheaded stepchild of the military, but we're still covered under military because, sorry, we're not so much search and destroy as we are search and rescue. So we definitely have a different mission, but we still do a lot with law enforcement, drug interdiction. But it's a really great branch. It's one of the smaller branches, and like Linda was saying, how her branch is more physical. Coast Guard is definitely a lot more mentally challenging. It's one of the higher ASVAB scores that you need in order to get in. But I was an electrician's mate, and especially being in a more male-dominated field, it was hard, and you did have to work hard to prove yourself. But once you proved yourself, you were the go-to person. It's just that kind of hump you had to get over. And Haley also said she was from a military family. Both my parents were in the Navy, so, and they were both in the electrical fields, kind of encouraged me to go with them. And I had big shoes to fill with my mom. She was one of the first females to go through the nuclear power program. So herself is like the ultimate trailblazer in my mind.
Wow. So, and what did you do in the Coast Guard? What was your? Did you have different career? Did you do different things, or did you stay to one field of work?
So our boot camp is the same as you guys. When we graduate from boot camp, we're either a fireman or a seaman. We get assigned to a unit, and we're either with the deck department doing navigation, boat work, or the engineering department, which is more the guts of the ship, engine work, auxiliary stuff like that. So I was in the engineering department.
Okay.
Went to electrician's mate school, did that. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and it definitely helped me transition out. And what's cool about the service is that they have the United States Military Apprenticeship Program, US MAPS for short. And as an electrician, you can log your hours. So when I got out of the service, I had paperwork showing that I had 2,000 hours logged of electrical work.
Oh wow.
So I was able to get a job fairly easily by presenting that.
So, and then from there, were you, because some of the art and things that you do post service, is that something you found an affinity to after service, or was that something that you have always had as far as an artistic eye?
Oh, I've been doing art since I could pick up a pencil, but I really got serious about it throughout college, and then I decided to join the service just because of lack of work. So when I got out, I wanted to pursue it again, and I always kind of did comics on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my gosh, the military definitely gives you a good source of information. Just that dark, brutal humor that you all kind of deal with, just tolerate, just to get through day to day. So I've done a lot of dark military humor in my comics, and a lot of people don't get it. It's like, well, you didn't serve, you're not going to get it, and that's okay.
So you've tapped into the secret power that we have in the military of dark humor and channeled it into the comics. Got it. Sold. Check. Talk to us real quickly before we go to the Navy side of the house. To the 2021 Trailblazer highlight. Tell us a little bit about that for those that may not even know what that is. We're going to highlight it here in a second, but talk to us how you kind of came up on that radar and how that is coming along for you.
So I mainly got that because of a chief who nominated me, which I'm very grateful for. I was really big in the Coast Guard community when it came to mental health and suicide awareness. So I was volunteering at the VA, and I saw a poster for a 22-hour-long ruck march. And it was free of charge. It was being put on by a local Marine in the area, and I was like, man, 22 hours. So 9 a.m. till 7 a.m. the next day. And just last month, a young petty officer had committed suicide. And what was tragic about it is that she went through not just one, but 2 sexual assaults. And unfortunately for me, like many females in the service, sadly, I also went through a sexual assault, but I was able to get help. I was able to get out. I was able to get an honorable discharge. So I almost had something akin to survivor's guilt, because it's like, why wasn't she able to get help? What kind of barrier, what kind of twisted command, what kind of lack of sisterhood or brotherhood was there to where she couldn't get that information? So what I did is that I said, well, I'm going to do this ruck march, and I'm going to do it in her honor. So what I did, and I actually have a few behind me. So I made these little wooden whales, and I put them up on Facebook, and I said, so here's my idea, guys. I'm going to do this 22-hour ruck march, and I'm going to put a bunch of these whales in my backpack. And if you donate $10, I will carry one for you, and I'll take out money for shipping, and then the rest is going to be donated to stopsoldiersuicide.org. I was thinking maybe like 10, 20 people. No, I had to make 106 of these in 4 days. That's a lot of pallets that I had to steal from Home Depot. So after I did the ruck march, it was a really big success. We got a good amount of people. Unfortunately, because it is 22 hours with a pack, about half of the people dropped out. So 10 completed it out of, I think, the 25 that we had for the first year. So after that tragedy, I wanted to keep the ball rolling. You know, I was able to do this. Well, what's next? So in making the whales, I had a lot of people request, hey, can you put the name of one of my good friends in the back who's also a coast that we lost to suicide? Like, yeah, no problem. Well, I made that offer available to anybody else that wanted to buy a whale. I got flooded with names. And I'm like, hold on, these are all coasties. That's so weird. So I ended up making a list, and unfortunately, I'm still adding to it. So all through internet researches, blogs, social media, emails, groups, Coast Guard related groups, I compiled a list of every single coastie that we've lost to suicide since 83. And right now we average 10 a year. And for our branch being so small, that is significant. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think was it 2019? I have it written down somewhere, but I think it was 2019. Suicide was leading cause of death in the Coast Guard. Out of all the other deaths that we had that year, suicide was number one.
Wow. Okay. That's and so where did you collect all those names and that information that you have right now? Is that being like sent somewhere? Is that going to the VA? Because that's significant data.
So I have a in with a shipmate that works for DC. That works in Washington DC for the Coast Guard, and she's able to kind of verify names for me in the way of deaths. I got all the information just by word of mouth. I would get emailed, Facebook messages, I'd be on groups. I got a really good book called The Study of a Secret Society, Resistance to Open Discussion of Suicide in the Coast Guard, that had a lot of good information on it. But no, just by word of mouth, I was able to compile a list of these names. And so the next year when we did the 22-hour ruck march, I printed them out and I put them in a clear folder, and then I pinned it to my backpack. So the next 2 years, I actually helped organize the ruck march, made the route. We got the community involved, so we'd had different stops along the way, and different people would sponsor us. So one of our stops at this gas station, this one church group, they brought us water, popsicles, snacks, stuff like that. So we were able to set up these different little spots along our route. But it was really great to see the whole community involved in South Texas.
That's amazing. And we're going to showcase here, like I said, where people can find some more information on this here. But so let's flip over to the Navy side of the house. Nayeli, talk to us a little bit about your service, and then specifically get some of the things you've done afterward, going into working with veterans on the VSO side of the house. Because it's interesting seeing kind of the different sectors that each of you have gone into, post service. So it's pretty interesting. So talk to us about when did you go into service? What was your experiences? And then we'll kind of go from there.
So I joined in 2004. Funny that I wanted to join the Coast Guard because there's a small Coast Guard base at home. And at the time I was 14 and I was going to our group, and one of the recruiters was one of our leaders in the youth group. So I was like, oh, I want to stay home whenever I graduate, because I was 14. I didn't know any better. So I was like, I want to stay home and, be able to go to the community college and, see what that's about. But then, 15, 16, school wasn't my thing. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for, if I could go. And then the biggest thing was my parents couldn't afford to put me through college. So I didn't want them to spend money when I didn't even know what I wanted to do with myself. So I was like, I don't want to be home. I'm not going to college. Um, so to get out of my hometown, the military was it. So I was like, definitely not Coast Guard anymore because I want to get out. So I just went to the Navy recruiter, and I signed up, and I graduated in May. And in June, I was in boot camp. I was still 17. I told my parents, if you don't sign for me, I have 1 more month to go. I will sign myself and, just go. I was that rebellious teen. So I was like, if you don't sign, I'm still leaving next month. So, we sat down, we talked, of course, being, Latino, like there was not a lot of knowledge on their side as far as like, what is this about? Where are you going? What are you doing? They knew nothing. So we talked a little bit. Luckily my recruiter was also Mexican, so the language barrier was kind of closed up. So he came to the house, he talked to my parents, and my parents like, okay, we'll sign her over. And literally a month later, I was on my way to boot camp. Like Carla, being in the Navy, you have 3 routes if you don't pick a designation. So I chose not to pick a designation because I wanted to get out of my hometown right away. If I was going to wait for a designation, I was going to wait like 6 months. And I'm like, I don't want to be the one home. Like all my friends are going off to college, others are joining the military. Like I want to get out. So I was like, whatever's next, I want it. So I went undesignated as a seaman. Out of boot camp, I went to my first ship and I was in deck department, and I liked it. I liked the deck department. So I wanted to be a bosun's mate. So just upkeeping of the ship, machinery, things like that. So that's what I wanted to do. But then because the Navy still had advancement exams, that rate was hard to make rank in. So I was like, I want to make rank because at that point, again, being 17, not knowing a whole lot of anything, I thought I wanted to make it a career. And that was my intent, making it a career. But so I wanted to make rank as fast as possible. So I went in as a gunner. So I took the exam for a gunner's mate, and again, predominantly male as was bosun's mate. But I made E4 right away. Going into the ship, I guess one of the first, barriers as a female in a predominant male rate as a seaman wanting to be a bosun's mate was that I was so curious. I wanted to learn how to operate the boat winch. I wanted to operate the forklifts. I wanted to be in the small boats. And it was like, who is this kid coming into the boat and just wanting to learn all these things? So I would go to my first class and I would go to the chief, or I would go to people who had been on the ship longer. And then, of course, all the rumors would start like, well, Hernandez, why is she with, BM1, or why is Hernandez? So it was that started, and those having to prove that no, it's not because of the X-rated things that you think are happening. It's because I am curious. I want to learn. I want to make rank. I want to advance. I don't want to be a seaman for 4 years and be an E3 for 4 years. I want to advance because I did want to make this a career. So that was the first, hurdle that I was like shocked for me, like leaving a small hometown, to going into, at 17, not knowing what was going on, how the military operates, a predominant male. So that was my first, like, I really have to prove myself. I have to go for what I want because it's going to be twice as hard for me as a female, as a Latina. So everything kind of was against it. But I did well. I realized that, being a bosun's mate wasn't going to advance me fast enough. So I decided to go a different route. So I was a gunner's mate because it was basically wide open. Put your name on the exam and you were going to get, promoted if you had the evaluations to support it and stuff. But because I was, curious and I was involved in a little bit of everything because I wanted to learn, I did have good evaluations. So that helped me. And then when I could, I crossed back over to bosun's mate. I went back to my second ship as the bosun's mate during my in between all of this. I got married, I had a child, and then that's why the career, didn't happen, because then the priority was to become a mother. Again, coming from a Latino background, my mom was like, your priority is to be a mother, not to be deployed every so often, and then your child's at home being raised by, either your husband alone or us, which in the 4 year span, she was moved back to Texas while we were stationed in California because we both, my husband and I were both in the Navy. We both assigned to ships. We were in and out to sea. He was deployed. I was by myself in California with no family. So that's why that career kind of came to an end. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting ride for 4 years. And then when I got out, like Hallie, I missed the camaraderie. I missed being around people who kind of got me, who knew what it was, who kind of knew, like if I curse somebody out, and again, this is like the bosun's made, atmosphere, like we're all, the guys, and like, I was like the only female in my last ship in our division. So it was like me and then 6 guys. So it's like we'll talk to each other crazy. Nobody got offended. And so going into the corporate world was like a shock for me. I'm like, I can't just, be upset at you or you be upset at me and then we move on. It's like HR's involved or there's bigger issues involved. And so I miss the camaraderie a lot. So I went back into the reserves after 2 years of being out. I was like, well, I'll give the reserves a shot before I decide do I want to go back active duty. So I did the reserves for 3 years while I was working in a housing authority. So I always say I think my calling is public service because I've been doing that ever since I got out of the military. I got out in June, and then I was working at the housing authority in December. So I was there for about 7.5 years. And then I took a 2 year break to go to school and finish my BS in business management. And then I kind of just landed in a VSO role. I never wanted to do a claim for myself. I never explored the VA for myself. But my husband, I've worked his claim since like day one. And that's how I taught myself about the process. And then I just kind of landed whenever I did start working on my own claim, like 9 years after I got out. Of course, I was like scared to touch my claim. I was scared to, go to the VA for myself. Like I was doing it for like at this point, 8, 7 years for my husband. So I went into a VSO to get help with my own claim. And, he was like, why do you know what you're talking about? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm here. And he's like, you do know what you're talking about because you're telling me what you need and how to do it. And you want me to help you to approach it. And he's like, do you want a job? And I'm like, no, I don't want a job. I had just graduated. My intent was to go finish my MBA. I was going to start the MBA program that summer. And so I was like, no, I don't want a job. But he was like, you should really apply. I have 2 openings. So I was just going to humor him and I applied. And then sure enough, he calls and I'm like, well, how do I tell you no now? So again, me being a people pleaser, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you no. So I went in, I interviewed, and then he's like, you're going to Austin, Texas for training. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. So, I went, I loved it. It was like another community because we were all veterans. So I got that camaraderie back. We were all veterans. Our director, our district manager, they're all veterans. And so I got that camaraderie again after so many years and it just felt like home. But then so that was one part. I felt at home. And then the rewarding part that, has been the most rewarding thing is helping veterans who were once just as lost as I was, or just as afraid, or felt who weren't entitled, or, feel like it's a ripoff because the system is so bureaucratic. So that was the rewarding part to me and why I keep doing it, because helping a veteran who's been fighting the system for 50 years and him telling you, I lost all faith until I talked to you. I share things with you that I would never share with my kids. Helping that Vietnam veteran who had no rating and is the most deserving veteran due to his time. That was the most rewarding thing to me, being able to help somebody who had lost faith in the system and, was more deserving than I was. I'm like, well, why do I have a rating? And here he has been for, 50 years, not being properly compensated for, his disabilities incurred during service. And so that's why I'm still doing that. That's why I still continue to help veterans. Even after I left my VSO role with the state of Texas, I continue to help veterans. I think you're muted.
And that's a good segue there to some comments came up that are coming through the feed. So Yellen has commented, "Wow, women empowerment, love, love, love." Lisa in the comment section with a great emphasis on Women in History Month. Brian also did give us a message. Great to see y'all. Such great representatives of women in the military, except me, because I'm just on the side talking. Kenneth says hello to everyone. Says Linda, good to see you online here. The article that we have that is we're going to show here in a little bit is over at Veterans Network. Deborah says hello from Georgia to the crew. Carrytheload.org is where you can find some of the information that Hallie was speaking of, and we'll talk about that here shortly. Frank, Karla, you may know or have heard of maybe Crayons Ready to Eat. He actually created the world's first edible crayon made of chocolate specifically. So he literally took the moniker of crayon eaters in the Marine Corps and he actually created a product. So they're CREs, not MREs, CREs. And seeing some of the work that you've done, he actually made a comment to the fact that he'd like to actually connect and reach out to you. He's actually putting together a comic book because what do you do with crayons? You got to color. So he's actually looking to put a comic book together. So Lisa is reaching out to him. And I'm going to, we'll connect you on the end here. Lisa did make a. Say again.
I said I'd love to. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we'll definitely connect you with Frank, but he's doing some amazing things there. To the 22 hours, unreal, says Lisa. We have some greetings from different folks here. Lisa saying hello. Brian saying hey from the Facebook side of the house. Saying there's 4 power women right there. And then one point that I thought was interesting, and that's why I kind of wanted to bring some of the comments up to speed here, is what you said, Nayeli, which is another point, right? It's sad, and this is coming from Monifa, sad that they thought that you were doing other things to move up. And that's something, that obviously sadly becomes part of it, right? It's not your merits. It's not because of the fact that you just busted your ass to actually do the work, learn the job, and do a thing. Talking about that specifically, what are some of your takes? I think that's a good point by Monique for bringing it up because I'm sure that you may have seen or have heard or experienced some of that. Hallie, over to you. Some of your thoughts on that there because Nayeli made a good point to speak on that, but you know how it is. Sadly, the perceptions and things like that are part of it. What are some of your thoughts on this comment?
I think it's ridiculous. I think that, it's just, I'm going to say it's people that make that assumption or they have less confidence in themselves. That's what I say about that. I think they're just trying to find an excuse as to why they're not matching up to the greatness. And I use Nayeli as an example. But again, I know so many great women, especially these 3 on here tonight, that have paved the way, that have done amazing things. And at the end of the day, especially, now it's a volunteer military. So I think the thing always to remember is that everyone that's going into service, they're volunteering and they're doing it to serve their country. So the fact that would even be a thought is just kind of disappointing. And always remember that you're serving with your brothers and sisters in arms. So regardless of what's going on, you should be supporting them, not trying to find a reason to tear anyone down. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Karla, what would be some of your thoughts on this? As far as because again, we're talking about this post-service side, but we may have some, young ladies who may want to go into service, right? And they may encounter some of this, right? I want to do a good job, but I've heard or the stigmas or what have you. And many of us, right? There were good times, there were bad times. The common theme being the camaraderie we miss. But what are your thoughts from your time in service and even now after as a veteran, kind of paying back into the veteran space and, using your art to speak to some of these things? I know some of the work that you've done specifically centers around a variety of topics in the veteran space and military space from mental health and so forth. But what's your take on this comment here? Because again, like I said, Nayeli made a good point to talk about it, but I'm sure everyone here has in some shape, fashion, or form either heard something to this regard or experienced it or had to, deal with it or what have you.
No, it's definitely an unfortunate stigma, and stigma is the best way I would say to describe it. Unfortunately for me, I just had like a very naturally my personality came off as flirtatious when I was just a super friendly person, and I just loved talking smack with everybody. And sometimes men and sometimes women would kind of take that the wrong way, which is unfortunate. I wish I had a better answer to solve that, but is it like what Nayeli was saying, this perception and the assumption that there's some underlying need or thing that you're trying to accomplish? Like, no, I'm just here to do my job. Thanks.
Mm. Linda, what do you have on your side of the house?
It's a twofold because I work with the young ones every day. Right before COVID, on an average day, I'd see maybe 1,500 students in my building. And I would find myself, going over, to mentor them because some of them would react in a certain way. And you have to, with the younger women, you have to mentor them. And at the same time, I found that you could also mentor the young men because you maybe years and years ago when there used to be a saying when a woman can't be in the foxhole with me, there was just all these stigmas that people had to overcome. But like now, when I look at the things that are going on now, that's your right arm. That person is your right arm. There is nothing sexual about it. And while some of it is still there and it'll always be there, I think, but I can see the growth. I can see the growth where it's like the young women are stepping up and saying, okay, I understand that that's there. You know what? I'm not going to take the cheap way out because you know what? I see a lot of them that can run a lot faster, that can do a lot of the things combat related that are stronger, that are
Mm-hmm.
literally stronger. And like I had told you, David, I was literally mad because you know what? I never saw a man in the military cry. I never, ever, ever. And they would railroad us until the end of time. It wasn't until I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that that happened. It was like I grew up in a world and, people grow up in it now. They're invincible. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that's not there. But then when I go into this and I talk to a lot of men, it's like, well, we can't. But yet you railroaded us. So
Mm.
it's a growing thing. But I see some of the younger ones now, they do cry because they're human.
And it's funny you say that,
And that
Linda, because literally right in line with that, this comment goes right into that same point. Frank with crayons ready to eat, loving the knowledge from a woman perspective point of view. And again, this is what tends to happen, right? I'm pretty sure many of you have heard, mansplaining something or trying to say, well, no, 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 like let's actually have a conversation and ask the questions, because we're not going to be able to have these conversations or talk about, what are some of the things that may have happened, because yes, there's still much work to do, but some work has happened, and we have to be able to, double down on the good stuff, but also identify what's missing. Because to that point, Linda, I want to ask you, Hallie, specifically. You were a helicopter pilot, and you deployed, and you worked in a very, not the usual, right? Like, most folks would assume back in the day, like, well, Hallie, what'd you do? Did you do some admin stuff? Like, nah, I flew helicopters. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
we did some things. We know how to get down and get down. Talk to us a little bit about that dynamic in that world. Again, we've all seen the different sides that everyone's been into, but from your side, being a pilot, working in that environment, deploying, how was that as a woman in that space?
Well, I I mean, anyone that knows me, I'm a tough cookie, and I get that from my parents. I have two brothers, so I think it goes back to anything that I put my mind to. I want to be the best at. I graduated flight school as an honor grad, so I mean, I'll say it. I scored higher than anyone else on that test. Like I was the smartest person up in that cockpit. If
Mm-hmm.
the emergency happened, like I knew exactly what to do. Um, I chose the unit that I wanted to go to because they were the unit that was closest to deploying. So as soon as I got there, we deployed, and it was the air assault unit, or the mission set, and I was excited. I wanted to be in the action.
Mm.
I think there's some respect behind that, as well as not being intimidated, and that's just really guidance that I received from my dad, who's a Vietnam veteran. Is don't show weakness, put your mind in neutral, and just get it done. And
Mm.
so I feel blessed because I had that support structure and that guidance going into it. So any females that were in my unit, I would push them to be their best as well, and just not take it. Like, you're smart, you're tough, just show it. Like, you can do it. And I had a great unit. I have nothing. I mean, amazing unit. I have nothing but amazing things to say about it. I think aviation is a different world. It's when you look in the Army, it's one of the most lax um, fields that you can go into, but it's the most demanding. So you have the strict rules, but at the same time, they like to have fun, and that's what I enjoyed about it. Again, you're in a really stressful, but at the same time, I mean, everyone's great. Everyone was very supportive, but I think that you just have to go into it knowing that you belong there, and you'll prove it.
Yeah, I think the mindset, that you kind of brought into that, which is, you busted your hump, you did your work, and yeah, rightfully so, you outscore everybody else. Like, you can't keep up, move out the way, right? I wanted to do a quick jump here to show the blog that we have as well over at veteransnetwork.com. We have our women in the military in the military current affairs special edition with some information for each of our panelists that we have here. Looking specifically at Karla, for example, it'll link over and you'll see on the VA side the highlight they did for her and the information and things that she's done specifically, again, using her arts and outlets to be able to address specifically military sexual trauma, PTSD, mental health, and so forth. And Hallie did speak about Carry the Load, so that information also is in the blog there as well. But to be able to get some more information on just kind of the background and what these amazing ladies have done, you'll find that at veteransnetwork.club. You'll see in the blog section as the very first one, women in the military, current affairs special edition. One question I would ask, I guess, open-ended for each of you, for someone else who may be looking into going into service, or they may have ambitions, but have reservations because some of the things they may have heard or what have you. What are some of the advices or lessons learned? Like, if you could go back, Linda, and talk to Linda right when she enlisted, and the best branch that there is, the Army. What would you tell Linda that day? Because obviously the part of the journey is all the things that happened got us to this point. But if I can go back, what are those things that maybe I would have said, hey, maybe focus down on this, or hey, don't stress this too much, it'll be better, whatever it may be. What would Linda say to Linda when she was X years old, going in bushy-tailed and just kind of like, the world's ahead of me?
Oh, I was old. I was 21 actually. I was considered older because you talking people 17, 18 years old. So when you're 21, you got to hump it. You got to hump it because you've got, you got those Martar relay people that can run a 7-minute mile, a 5-minute mile. So for me, probably would have went sooner than later. That would be the big thing, sooner than later. And, I got thrashed so many times, and just became a literal joke to me. And your mind is stronger than theirs will ever be. If someone just keeps their focus at the front of their mind, you can walk on fire and never feel it burn. And I think, like I tell them, okay, what did you come here for? What did you come here for? What's the end game? It may not be 20 years, but what are you going to do in between? If you don't have anything else, or you need a little bit of mentorship, you need a little bit of discipline, maybe 2 or 3 years, you know what? Maybe the best thing for you to keep you out of trouble.
So we've established, one, Linda, that you went in with bad knees already because you were a senior citizen by all regards. If you're 21 years old going to service, you're a senior citizen for most of the younger folks. But what would you say specifically to that? And then we'll move on, have the other perspective as well. But you said something about the mentorship side and being able to reach out. During your time in service, was that something you felt was available to you? And over the years,
did you see? It didn't come until maybe 10 years later. It literally didn't come until it was like enforced by the commandant. It's like, okay, you're going to spend X number of hours mentoring, because it was like you came, you PT'd, you worked, you left. Mm-hmm. That was it. And we even worked in worlds where if you called me in your office, you would have to bring another female in there because they were all paranoid. So there was no knowing. And now everything is together. And I can remember a lot of my nieces, nephews, cousins, and they would be like, Auntie, what do I do? What do I do? You know what? You hold your head up. You don't cry. And you're like, I tell them, I say, you got to run. You got to be strong, but you got to be mentally strong. And it has to be something that you put your heart into it. Because once you put your heart into it, you can do the military. You literally can.
Nayeli, same question on your side. If you could go back and talk to 17-year-old Nayeli, full disclaimer, outside of you saying, hey, young Nayeli, the Army is the way to go, what would you have told yourself? I'm not biased.
They're just trying to get you, Nayeli. You see that?
I would have probably been more strategic with what I did. Because I wanted to make it a career, I was so gung-ho about my rate. I wanted to get my surface warfare pin. I wanted to get every qual under the sun that I could because I wanted to make it a career. But I would now, when my sister considered it, I always said, if you don't know what you want to do, at least start off with something that can translate into the civilian world. Me being a bosun's mate, so when I got out, I was like, well, what do I do with being a bosun's mate in the civilian world? Do I go work on, the port and do, whatever? Or do I go to be a merchant marine? And so when I looked at, being a merchant marine, I'm like, it's the same thing as being in the Navy. So why did I get out?
Wow.
I'm going to be gone. I'm going to, still leave my child behind. So why did I get out? So I wish that I would have been more, strategic about what I did and the way I planned things out. Whenever I was going to school, I took, college courses while I was in, but I didn't take it serious because I'm like, I'm not going to get out. I'm going to be in for 20 years. So I didn't take it serious. So I wish I would have taken the education side serious from the get-go, because when I went back to school with 2 kids full time, a disabled veteran husband, it was tough 4 years of school. And I was so hard on myself. I was like, there's no way you're going to do a 4-year degree outside of the 4-year time frame. So I pushed myself for 4 years to finish a 4-year degree in 4 years. So that's definitely what I would tell 17-year-old rebellious Nayeli, to be more strategic with what I was doing.
From the audience, just again, not biased, but from the audience, there is a comment from Brian Lofton, which you may know. Nayeli's only regret not joining the Army. Is that
No.
That's not a valid statement?
That
might be
not
fake.
a
That might be
valid
fake news.
I only went to the Army recruiter to humor my cousin, and that was the only reason, because he had joined the Army Reserves, and he's like, you're joining the wrong branch. I'm like, no, I'm not. Let me show you why I'm not. And so I went and talked to the recruiter. I'm like, no, I'm not going.
But I think before I go to Hallie and then to Karla about this, I think one thing that's amazing to look at here is so many of us may have not had, let's say, a military background or family, so you're kind of going at it blind. Like when I went into the military, there was nobody I could reference or talk to, right? There was no like, hey, make sure. It was just like, I'm here and off I go. And others may have had that, but I think even having these conversations of maybe the things that, I should have, would have done better, hopefully help someone else to be able to ask those questions or be more intentional and strategic. Because, all of us, when we first went into service, right, it was like it was going to be forever. A 4-year contract, this will never end. And before you know it, you're like, I'm in TAPS? What do you mean it's over? Like, just like that, it's all over. Hallie, what are some of the things you would say if you can go back? Obviously, the first check off is you win Army, so we're good on that side. But what would you tell yourself, or what's something that you would have done differently or given yourself advice?
Differently, I think it's just important to remember that when you start and you go to boot camp, everyone is so nervous, that initial training. And I don't know what you guys were told, but I was literally told, put your mind in neutral, because they're literally tearing you down to build you back up. And they're building you back up for those leadership skills, which, and Nayeli, you mentioned it, having skills to transfer into the civilian sector. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for those soft skills that you can't teach today. And so they're I mean, veterans are transitioning. They're grasping at the bit to get those. But you can't teach it. Military has it. They put you under a pressure where you have the ability to make those decisions, and there's no other environment that you can bake to have that certain type of pressure on you where you have to make those immediate decisions. I remember before I started, I was like, "Is this really what I want to do?" I have the mentality that once you start something, you have to finish it. I'm sure you guys have heard the saying, "Embrace the suck." Embrace the suck, and you look back, and everyone that you were doing it with, they became your best friends. They were going through it with you. So I just like to reflect on that. And at the end of the day, we all served our country, and again, it was a volunteer. We all did it voluntarily, which is amazing when you think back generation after generation where they were told to do so. But again, I think it's more the mental fortitude. Just anyone can do it. Put your mind in neutral. They're literally training you and strategically trying to scrape down any sort of bad to build you back up into this amazing organization. And that's what we're doing for.
And I think I want to just highlight what you said, because many folks would say, these skills will transfer over. But looking at what each of you ladies are doing right now in your respective fields, this is not just hyperbole to say, these things will cross over. It's just like, no, I'm telling you, as someone in the field, right, these are the things that we look for. These are the things. Hallie may know a thing or two because she's in that world. She sees those things and the lack of those things, skills, soft skills, and so forth. A few comments that came on Facebook as well. Amy did make a comment and said that Nayeli would have went Air Force if given the opportunity. So that's one thing that Amy did say from the comment section. And Monifa kind of doubled down and said, sadly, I wonder why they immediately think something else is going on instead of believing the work, to kind of caveat to what the comment was earlier as far as working hard or ascending. Karla, on your side of the house, if you could go back or a piece of advice for either yourself or someone who may be that 17-year-old, young lady who wants to go into service, what would you share or say?
A quote that really spoke to me that I heard last year that really just kind of hit home with me altogether is, if you have a problem with me, call me. If you don't have my number, then you don't know me well enough to have a problem. And I've been telling myself that because people are so quick to assume things based if you're a male or a female, based on your race, based on where you came from. No, we're all individuals. So my big thing, if I could tell myself all over again, is don't let them get to you. No matter what you go through, show up, do your job. Don't let them get to you. Let them talk. Most of my good friends on my ship were guys. We'd go out drinking, we'd go out partying. But when we came back to the boat, they would say, "Hey, Thompson, you can go ahead of us. We'll go on the boat in like 10 minutes, so we're not going on at the same time, or else it looks bad." I'm like, oh, it's so stupid. Because we're all here to work together, we're all shipmates, we're all friends. But I'm hoping it's more of like a generational thing. I really hope that mentality will change over time.
And I think that's powerful. And as we kind of come to the hour mark here, if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section, and we'll pull it up for these amazing ladies. If you have a question for Karla, for Nayeli, for Hallie, or for Linda, please feel free to comment those. But I think it's the conversations, again, that need to be had. I think in some shape, fashion, or form, each of you ladies has made a point to do that. So the one question I would have for each of you, you went into service, and we talked a little bit about that. Post-service, what is one of the driving motivators that drives you to serve, right? Because you're each doing something post-service in some shape, fashion, or form to either pay it back to another veteran or tell a story. And again, everybody's doing it differently. So what is one thing you would say is a driving force for you post-service? Because you've taken off the uniform and you're obviously now in a different capacity, but you're still serving in different ways. Hallie, to you first, what would be one of your driving, I guess, motivators and fulfillment that you have here post-service?
So I think the military has the best of the best that America has to offer. And again, when I left the service, I was searching for that camaraderie, and that's when I was introduced to Carry the Load. And it is just a community of military nonprofit after military nonprofit, and they all have similar missions that are aligned. It's that force multiplier of nonprofits that come together, but they're all out there serving veterans that whether it's health, healing services they need, direct services, education, Gold Star families, anything that you could think of, they are there for those that really need it. And it's a platform to hear the stories of amazing Americans that have sacrificed or those that aren't here today. And I love it. I mean, you want to be inspired? Go spend 10 minutes talking to someone that has an amazing story. So,
I love that. Um, Linda.
Oh God, what's my driving force? I like people. I think for me, there's just so much out there to learn about people because I felt like I lived a sheltered life. And that's the one thing the last couple of years has done for me. I can just relate to the younger ones, to the older one. I like teaching. I love to teach. For me to see the light bulb to come on, to design something, to develop something, to help somebody be able to do something that they just, you know what, I can't do it. And to see the light bulb of the families that come on, that's why I do what I do. Whether it's going to the soup kitchen or, just walking around picking up trash on the side of the road. I just like doing it because I live in a military town. So there's no place that I can't go where there's not a veteran. And you know what, I can go to Walmart and I'm there for a half hour, 45 minutes, just reminiscing. And it's that, yeah, it's a camaraderie. It's a family everywhere you go. And that's my driving force. I don't think I'll ever stop helping veterans or people and things in their life, but it's part of me. It's like my family.
Nayeli, over to you.
I think my driving force is why I continue to serve veterans because I like the rewarding feeling that no matter how many times or how many veterans I see, it's always about the gratitude that you being there for somebody, you listening to somebody go way above a monetary benefit. So, that's what does it for me, being able to help another veteran in need, whether it's pointing them in, medical services, whether it's pointing them to education services, anything but being able to help a veteran. And then, public service, you know, so it's my pushing force for my kids because I want them to be appreciative of what they have, to be able to value things and value relationships with people who just need somebody. Don't be, especially in a digital world where things can be different. We would play outside until the street lights came on, and I feel like kids don't have nowadays. And so to me, that's important to teach them to be there for somebody else.
Awesome. Carla, over to you.
So my big drive, I would say, more like the mental health kind of section, um, as my own kind of personal therapy.
Just
After,
like I'm here.
huh?
No, I think that was an echo.
Oh, okay, no worries. So for my own kind of personal therapy, I decided to illustrate my sexual assault experience when I was in the service. Everything that kind of built up to it happening, the court date, the aftermath, everything that kind of built up to it. And I got so many good responses back, not only from other like older men saying, "Oh my gosh, this is grooming. Now I know what to look for." I've gotten responses from other women that have been through similar situations going, "This is exactly how I felt. I thought nobody else got it. The way that you explained it, the pictures that you drew, that's how I felt." So that's a huge motivator for me. And I think the best that I ever heard from somebody was whenever I would update my Coast Guard suicides list, it had the date, their name, their rating that they were, and the list went down. I think I'm up to like 230 something right now. I got a message from a shipmate, and he was on the brink, and she was close to just ending it. And then she thought, you know what? No, I don't want to end up on that list. And that meant the world to me. The fact that I potentially saved her just from this list being in existence. So I've been told by other people that it's a little bit morbid, but to me, it's not just numbers. You know, these are people. These are shipmates that we served with. Somebody that might have pulled you from the water one night when your boat went under. So I think when it comes to suicides in the service, getting rid of the number and actually putting a name to each number, I think will have a bigger impact.
That's awesome. A good follow up here. And I'll post it up here from Lisa to each of you. How would you feel about your daughter going into the military today? Whoever wants to answer first.
I would love it. I mean, I followed my mom's footsteps. One thing that I wanted to mention previously about the driving factor, that I did not mention, is my dad's a Vietnam veteran. As you guys know, America was not here for Vietnam vets when they came home. It's a huge driving factor for me. I have a newborn son, and again, if I had a daughter, when I have a daughter, I want to make sure if she wants to go into the service, or anyone wants to go into the service, that should they decide to transition out, you know, if anyone's loved one does not make it home, that America is here to support you.
Linda, Karla, over to you.
I feel pretty confident about it. It's definitely changed over the years. Back when my mom was a nuke, she told me some pretty ridiculous stories that she had to put up with. But no, I definitely have more faith in the service today, and I feel comfortable if my daughter wanted to join. It had to be the Coast Guard, though.
Don't let Linda talk you into otherwise.
Oh, come on.
Well, over to you, Linda. What would you say to the same question?
What would I say? I mean, that was one that I had to battle with. That was one that I literally had to battle with. There've been a lot of changes. Would it be something that I would be comfortable with? Yeah, but I'd probably have a conversation with the recruiter so that he wouldn't fill her head with lies. And I've always told her that whatever you decide to do, it has to be your decision for your reasons. I'll back you. You know, I wouldn't say, no, I want you to go in the Marine Corps because I was in the Marine Corps. I would have to be her decision because she's got to live up to that.
Nayeli, over to you.
I would support it. There was a time where she said that she was going to join the Navy, but she wanted to be an officer. So I would definitely support it. You know, with both parents having a military background, I think she'd be better prepared than what I was. But yeah, I definitely support her.
And I think that's a great question, Lisa. Thank you for that. We have Ann in the crowd as well, saying howdy, representing the Air Force. My ex sister-in-law also is in the room. One of my nieces actually is serving right now in the Navy as well. So she basically was saying her ex-husband, my wife's brother, he was in the Navy, so their daughter went ahead and went into the Navy as well. So they're representing there. Let's see. Lisa here has a comment. I am guessing Amy would say Air Force and dental, so there's no MREs. Karla, you have not experienced this, but there may be an idea for you should you choose to artistically go down this path. We do a show on Friday nights, and Amy actually had never eaten an MRE in her entire Air Force career, and we literally made a point to introduce her to one live. And
It was the omelet.
it was an interesting experience nonetheless, to say the least. That's where the comment comes up with the MREs there. We'll send you a snippet of that so you can take a look at it. Should it inspire your art, you're welcome. But
I went hiking one time with an Air Force veteran friend, and she brought an MRE with her. And she opens it up, going through it, and son of a gun, there was a package of cappuccino mix. I'm like, oh, Air Force.
We can't. Some of the Facebook users on private groups doesn't pop up, but we have Liz from Latina She Serves saying hello to everyone as well. One as we begin to wrap up, like I said, we'll take another question or two if they want to pop them into the comment section. But in parting, I guess, as we start to kind of close out, usually what we like to do is kind of go around robin and have a closing thought for those that are out there. But I think everyone kind of has alluded to this, but given the state of where we're at, with the pandemic, with mental health being what it is, I think these conversations are needed. I think there's individuals, women that are dealing with things, men that are dealing with things, and being able to just get perspective, get encouragement that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Karla, to your art, to what you've done, to you documenting your story, your journey, that powerful process there. I think it's encouraging to others to see that. And if we could play a part in highlighting that, I think that's really what it's all about, to be able to give voices and help kind of come together and show that, hey, we have the ability to change the narrative just a little bit, right? I appreciate all of you answering the question. I have a daughter, same thing. If she wanted to join the service, it's make an informed decision, right? These are the things I wish I knew when I would join the service, right? The recruiter said, here, this is what you do, and I didn't know any better, so you kind of just go with the flow. But being more informed, being more intentional would obviously be a big part there. So I appreciate you all answering that very candidly. So as we start kind of wrapping up here, Nayeli, we'll go to you first. What will be some of your closing thoughts for those that may be watching this live or on the replay, as it relates to not just, a 1 month to recognize women in service, but overall the fact that we do have women in service that are advancing the narrative, that are doing amazing things, that are breaking barriers, and, seeing from Linda's point of saying, in the 80s to the 90s, just the changes that have happened, the needle is being pushed forward, but it takes more talk like this to identify not just the good that's happened, but hey, there's still work to be done. But what would be some of your closing thoughts to share with the audience?
So, like you said, I do believe that the military is making changes and it is moving forward and it's embracing change, but there's definitely a lot to be done. And what I would say would be to all of our brothers in the military, or veterans, or any capacity with a military background, is to embrace the female veterans. There's still a huge distinction. And last week I went to a car wash and I was paying, and as I'm retrieving my debit card, the guy walks up to me and he said, "Are those your plates? I have the Iraqi campaign medal on my license plates." And he said, "Are those your plates?" And then I said, "Yes." And he said, "Did you go to Iraq?" And I said, "I have the plates. Yes." And so
it's my car, not somebody else's car.
Right.
Yeah.
Had that been a male veteran, I don't think that would have been a question. It would have been a thank you for your service. And so I think our male brothers, military, veteran, reserve, if they could start embracing female veterans without women or female attached to it, I think that would start some positive change.
Yeah.
And that's a good point there, Nayeli, because I'll kind of switch it. You kind of went to it too, but a better question, rather, in closing, would be, what is one thing you would like, men to know or understand as it relates to your service, which you already kind of answered, which is a better, I guess, way to kind of index it. Even in this conversation, I'm having this, obviously, we have to preface it, but for me, it's like, no, I'm having a conversation with leaders, right? With amazing leaders that served in veterans. There's no need to have to put, that women lead. Like, no, Hallie's a fucking pilot. End of story. You know what I mean? You kicked ass, you did some shit, you're a West Point graduate. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what we're trying to move to. But I think that's a great point. So going to either Karla, Hallie, or Linda, what's something that, you would kind of close on, but what's something you would like, I guess, men on the other side of the table to understand or hear from your experience to date, in your closing thought? Over to Hallie.
Yeah. I first want to say thank you to all the women, before me, now, that have paved the way for the future. I think I would just say keep an open mind. Every single day, women are breaking down barriers, and we have females that are rangers now. When that is so recent, and I think that if females can hold the standard and do the standard, then you should welcome them with open arms, and they're just going to make you better. So I want to say thank you.
Awesome. Linda or Karla, We got Mike with a good comment here. Who else would truly help us but our fellow brothers and sisters? Amen to that.
Go ahead, Linda.
Oh, okay. See, see, look at there. I was being polite. I would probably don't doubt us. Don't doubt us for the things that we do. We work as hard as you do. We will literally go in and put in more hours. Just for a big thing is just respect. When I'm in there and I'm in the trenches, I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm doing everything right. And that's, if I could change one thing in the service, don't fear the woman, embrace her. Embrace her, because you know what? Everybody that signs that dotted line today, they sign a contract to take a bullet for their country.
Linda, I'm going to need you to say that again because I'm sure somebody may have had the volume low. Say that part one more time, which I love. Don't fear the woman.
Don't fear the woman. Embrace us. Embrace us. We work alongside of you. We're not a threat. I mean, I think that you compliment us, we compliment you. You know what? Embrace us. Because we both signed a bullet we signed a contract to take a bullet. That bullet's not saying male or female.
That is the damn truth.
Embrace it. Embrace it.
No, I love that, Linda, and that's a very powerful position that I appreciate you sharing, because I wanted to kind of really highlight on it because I think it's about, again, changing that narrative and really asking a genuine question as we move forward. Karla.
So I'm going to touch back on the comment I made earlier about individuality. Sometimes I feel I've seen this with other men that I've worked with. Well, the last female that we had was lazy and gun decked the log, so why should I expect you to be any different? It's like, because I'm not her. I'm different.
There you go.
And I felt really bad because my husband, he's a gunner's mate, Nayeli.
Nice.
It was the very first, because with the gunner's mates in the Coast Guard, it's very isolated. Usually it's like a second and a chief, and that's it. So for the first time ever in his career, he had a subordinate, and it was a female third class. And unfortunately, she was just the worst example that you could have of a female service member. She was lazy. She was on her phone all the time. She played up the woman card. She wanted special treatment. And it's like, no, you're making us look bad. So I think that's another unfortunate aspect. So if I were to say anything to men in the service for the future, don't paint us all with a broad brush. We're all different. And if you had a bad experience with one of us, I'm sorry. And it sucks, but believe me, we are not all like that. And it's unfortunate that once we have, one shitty female service member, you're all like that. And same thing, I don't know if they have the term for you and I am in the Navy, morale gear, boat bunnies, we got those terms as well. One gal screwed around with a guy on the ship. Women in the service, am I right? It's like, no, it's individuality. So that's the one thing that I would push just in general across the board with all branches. Look at people as individuals.
No, I think that's a great point, Carly, because literally if you were to say two anonymous people and take their actions, and you wouldn't know if A, soldier or sailor was a man or a woman, and B was a man or a woman, you wouldn't know, and you list the things they were doing, you would just say, okay, look, A is a train wreck and B is just equally a train wreck. Oh, guess what? One's a man, one's a woman. You didn't say anything different there, but because of that, down to it, same thing. Like everything that you would say to your point of, oh, this person's Lacy. I'm like, well, crap. The last guy we had here was an E4 freaking from Texas. He sucked ass. Does that mean that every other, you know what I mean? So it's exactly that same point, doubling down. I think it's amazing. Some of the comments that came in, and doubling down on your comment, Linda, embrace us. Shalon saying that part, Linda, again, that resounding to what you said there. To your point, everyone is an individual. Please don't group me as a lazy one. because that tends to happen, right? And it happens, beyond sex. It happens with race as well, and many other things. You start looking at the LGBTQ side of the house, assumptions that can be made, and all these other things. And slowly but surely, it's like, no, let's start breaking this down. So I appreciate each of you for sharing your perspective and answering the question, because again, it's an honest question of what should we hear on our side of the house? Because again, we are serving side by side, and when, like Linda said, if you're downrange and a round is coming, look, if Hallie's in that helicopter and I'm flying that one, look, we're moving forward doing something. There is no like, oh, don't go over there. Like, come on now. Sadly, those conversations still need to happen in many circles, but we've advanced and things have got better. But there is definitely a lot of work to do, as you've all alluded to from the beginning. I really just wanted to, as we kind of end here, thank you all for your time, for sharing, for being candid. There's so many things that we can unpack, but I think being able to have this conversation is helpful. It's the first of many, right? So I don't want this to be we're having a memory for the month. No, we'll have a follow-up and talk about other things, but we want to start somewhere, right? We want people to be introduced to Karla, to Nayeli, to Hallie, to Linda, to the things that you ladies are doing, because there's other conversations that we can have, right? Specifically to now you've served your post-service, let's get tactical and strategic with what do you do if you want to go into corporate America, or you want to start your business, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, or you want to get into the arts, whatever it may be, or go into the government. Each of you can touch on those areas, and I think those are the things that we need. But I think having an introductory conversation just to kind of set the tone that we have a richness in our veteran community, which is comprised of women who are bringing amazing backgrounds and skill set. I think it's great. So I just wanted to thank you for each of you for sharing and being here. And hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks, JT. This is fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
For the record, we have established that Linda, because she was Army and Marine, the best time of Linda's life was definitely in the Army.
Actually, I split it up, but when they told me that I had to wear those bell bottoms, I wanted to do 5 years in each branch. That was my goal. That was what I wanted to do.
How'd that work out for you? Because I think you went a little bit over.
I know. I couldn't. I was like, no, I'm not going on a ship. I can't wear Gilligan pants.
I think you could have pulled
Then
it
I
off.
was told to shut up and color in a different language.
Oh, and that's for part 2. Alibi comment here. If all military and veterans would start with common respect of each other's for each having earned where they are, that would go a long way towards creating the understanding of equality in service. We have Lisa in comment here saying, thank you, ladies, for your time, service, and sharing your viewpoints. And again, thank you to the viewers as well for being able to join us here this evening. So we'll be back with another segment soon. There's a lot to unpack, but again, I appreciate you ladies. And no matter what anybody tells you after the show, Linda loved the Army.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.